As he was taking me to school, I said, why me? There's 3,000 kids on the streets of Kampala. Why me? And he said, I just want to be faithful. After being in school for 3 months, he invited me to go to his home. On a Sunday, I went to home and they had dinner and they were eating. And they said, you can serve. So I got my food and I started the exit door. So the next Sunday, they did the same, exit door. The fourth Sunday, they did something really unique. They had food, but there was an empty seat. And this empty seat had my name on it. That I was worthy to be on the dining table. Well, all my life I ever thought I'm not good or worthy of being anywhere. And that's how it changed my life. I was born in a place where life was miserable in every shape form you can imagine. Grew up in a home where no one told me to dream or to be hopeful. Here's the reason why. If your mom cannot feed you for a night, how does she tell you to dream? Grew up in a home where I had one meal every other day. We could not have beans and potatoes. Beans today, potatoes the next day. I grew up in a home where in 365 days, I had a different meal on Christmas. So I grew up knowing that Christmas was about chicken because it was the only time we had chicken. But men had to eat, women and children last. And I grew up in a Roman Catholic family. At the end of Lent, we would have beef. So those are the only 2 days in 365 days I had a different meal. Clothes. I had one pair of clothes from Monday to Saturday and one for Sunday. Never had a pair of shoes until I was 16 years old. Never slept on a mattress until I was 16 years old. Tell me, how do you dream? My family could not afford $5 to send me to school. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They could not. So for me, life was just a blinking away. I went to fetch water from the age of 3, 2 to 3 miles one way, back twice a day. So did I ever have a childhood? Absolutely no, because at the age of 4, you began to provide, be part of providing for your family. And then at the age of 4, I began to realize that not only were poor, but my dad was different from any father you could think of. My dad was the most abusive human being on the planet. So for me, I had poverty on one side and a mean dad on the other side. And the worst part for me was growing up, this is what I had from my dad before I went to bed and when I woke up. Peter, you never amount to anything. Peter, you're useless and worthless. Peter, I wish you were never born so I didn't have to feed you. As a kid, you don't want to dream to see tomorrow. Or even dreaming was a way of punishing yourself. Like, I don't want to think about tomorrow because it's going to be worse than what it is today. And the worst part was the abuse that came towards me came towards my mom as well. And most of the time, my mom got the worst abuse. Here's why. Every time as kids, when we said we are hungry, she would go to my dad and say, the kids haven't eaten. Would you provide them food? But my mom got beatings for that. So as a kid, you're afraid to say you're hungry because you're trying to protect your mom. How do you dream? How do you hope? And so at the age of 10, I knew my father would kill me, but I was like, but why give him the opportunity to do so? So I had never been 20 miles away from my village, so I went to the bus station and asked the lady, hey, of all these buses, which one goes the farthest? As a 10-year-old, you have kind of no clue of distance. So for me, the best way was, which will take me the farthest? And the lady said that one, and I got on that bus, and I went 500 kilometers away from my village. And I ended up in Kampala. And I had one option, to be a street kid. So I became a street kid at the age of 10. You may ask, what does the street life in Uganda look like? Let me say, there's nothing in the United States I can compare what a street life as a Ugandan boy looks like. Where did I sleep? I slept in the sewer. Why in the sewer? The sewer smelled so bad that that's where we would hide as kids because no other normal people could go. So it was a safe home for me. How about the smell? Well, we would steal diesel and smell the diesel on our mouth or on our nose so we can smell the diesel than the dead stench. But also some people didn't like us, so they won't give us food. So they will throw in the garbage. So being close to the garbage, so when the food is thrown away, you're the first one to go. Not your fellow street kids, but the dogs. So most time, I was treated more like a stray animal, to be honest. And that was my life for 5 years as a kid. But as street kids, we learned how to survive. Survive while you're helping. In other words, if someone's going to abuse you, why not get food out of them anyway? So I saw a gentleman who was buying food. We knew who can afford food. Wearing glasses, wearing khaki, and you have shoes, you can afford food. So today, if you're wearing khakis, you have glasses, watch out for your wallet. It might not make it. So I saw a man, I was like, there's mine, I'm going after this one. And I followed him, and as soon as he bought his food, he bought bananas, and so I lifted the thing, and I wanted to take it and say, hey, put my food down. And he followed by asking me the one thing that nobody had ever asked me before. He said, hey, what is your name? And that rattled me, because no one had ever asked me my name. But also here's why. As street kids, everyone was kind, was abusive at the same time. So for me to say, what's your name? It meant danger, 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 danger. Kindness followed the abuse in some way. So for me, I wanted to run away. But before I could run away, he gave me something to eat. And so he left. Next week, he comes back. Next week, he comes back. The fourth week, I kind of know, wait a minute. He comes during this time. He buys this. He parks his car here. So one day in a week, someone knew my name. But also, I didn't have to steal because he always gave me something to eat. So it's one day that I had to look forward to where I felt human for a moment. And so he fed me for 1.5 years, and one day he said, hey, Peter, if you had an opportunity to go to school, would you love to go to school? I laughed so hard. Wait, I live in the sewer. I stink. Never seen a shower. Only when it rains, we might stay out, but I've never taken a shower. But also we thought, the people who go to school are those who have mom and dad. They live in a home. I am none of that. So I felt he was mocking me. It's like me coming to you guys and say, hey, they're sending people to the moon. Who would like to go? How many of you go to bed saying, I want to go to the moon? Why? Because it's far-fetched. And for me, that's how it felt. School? For me? Are you sure? My dad said I would never amount to anything. My dad said I'm good for nothing. I am good for nothing. I smell, I look like it. And I said no. Next, a few months later, he comes back. He said, hey, if you go to school, there'll be lunch, dinner, and breakfast. Literally, this is what I said. What time do we go? What time do we go? But also I questioned, literally this is me. I thought only in heaven can you have 3 meals. Because I had never seen anyone have 3 meals. So did I want to go to school because there was a meal? Definitely. But also, here's what made me want to go to school. For the very, very first time, someone saw me as a human being. And that really struck me, that he saw the best in me because I didn't know there was anything good in me. That's what I was told, and that's what I looked like. And so he took me to school. Not to be a teacher, not to be anything, but also this man, he didn't call me a thief. He didn't call me names that everyone else called me. He always called me by my name, Peter. What would you like to eat today? I never had a choice in anything. Choice in anything at all. For him to ask me, what would you like to eat? When all my life I lived to steal what I could eat. That's what changed my life. It wasn't the school. But for some reason, someone saw me as a human being. So as he was taking me to school, I said, why me? There's 3,000 kids on the streets of Kampala. Why me? Why me? And he said, I just want to be faithful. Charlie, thank you for being faithful on this Memorial Day to honor those who've done everything they could. Thank you for sending missionaries. Thank you for loving on me. And that's why I went to school. After being in school for 3 months, he invited me to go to his home. For the very first time, on a Sunday, I went to home and they had dinner and they were eating. And they said, you can serve. So I got my food and I sat at the exit door. Why? Because I had never seen a good man who can eat with his family. So I thought he's about to beat his family. So I'm going to get my food, and when he starts, I'll be out. So the next Sunday, they did the same, exit door. The next day, the next Sunday, the fourth Sunday, they did something really unique that God triggered this yesterday. They had food, but there was an empty seat. And this empty seat had my name on it. Last night I went to have dinner with Charlie and his family. And I asked, where should I sit? And he put me at the end of the table. And right away that just sparked me back to their family. That I was worthy to be on the dining table. Well, all my life I ever thought I'm not good or worthy of being anywhere. These are tears of joy that someone could consider me to be part of the table. And so for me, for the very first time, I began to dream like, wait a minute, if there's a family I want to be like this family. Because before, I didn't have something to measure what good is. And that's how it changed my life. Remember, I asked him, why me? Because he wanted to be faithful. For young people who are here, I want you to do me a favor today. When you go back home, open that fridge, look what is inside. Look back to mom and dad and say, Mom, thank you that we have food in here. For some of you teenagers who are here, go in that closet, open that closet, count how many shoes you have in there, and say, Mom, I'm grateful that I can have sometimes a shoe that matches every dress that I have. With gratitude, when we get to know how much we've been given, when we get to see it, then we get gratitude to know, man, God, you love me this much? And that's what I told you guys. I am the wealthiest human being on the planet. That I can have 3 meals. Because this man was faithful. My family came to know the Lord as their Lord and Savior. Why? Because for my mom, she said, how can a stranger love my child as theirs? But once my mom knew this man loved the Lord, she went to church. For me, I didn't want to be a believer because I had so much anger towards my father that I wanted to harm him. That was my whole goal. I wanted to go back home, get the baseball bat, break his 2 legs, and say, now I forgive you. But also I struggle with the Bible. The Bible says, forgive even those who've wronged against you. I'm like, wait a minute. Are you sure my father is part of that? But my foster parent, he taught me one story of Joseph. He said, what did Joseph say when his brothers found him? He said, for what you meant for evil, God used it for good to save life. And I'm being honest. I am where I am because I did my best to embrace my past and use it as a foundation to do better for myself and others. If you're here and you're still harboring on that past, it's going to rob you. And I did not want it to rob from my opportunity that I had. Just like Joseph said, remember, he followed everything he could and God used him to save. He had every right to say, woe me, why me? And that's what helped me to forgive my dad. I'm a foster dad, not because yes, I do have extra bedrooms, but because he taught me what a father ought to be. I thought every man beats up his family, every man is mean, verbal in any way, shape, form, because that was the only example that I had of how many treated me on the streets, but also how my own father treated me. But this man was kind. Every time I stole something, he gave me the extra of what I stole. And I say, what's wrong with you? Where I went low, he went high. And it changed my life. So now you see why Luke 12:48. From everyone who has been given much, much will be demanded. And from the one who's been entrusted with much, much more will be asked. I have been entrusted with much. And we who live in the United States have been entrusted with much. Now you see why I'm keen on being a foster parent. To love my kids. Also to make sure they go back home. That's why I've had so many kids go back home. Because I get to love on their parents. No mom gives birth to a child so they can go in foster care. No. But along the way, they fell through the net. That they don't have the resources that you and I have. And to love them as who they are rather than who I want them to be.